There's a ton to cover on this. Good morning, everybody. You know, sometimes Davos seems somewhat insignificant to a lot of us. This year, different
So
deal.
much.
I'm Bill Hammer. Welcome to Tuesday. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm Dana Perino, and this is America's Newsroom. This is also the 1 year since President Trump was inaugurated for his second term, and he has dominated the news nationally and internationally 365 days. I'm assuming tomorrow he keeps it going. And he will deliver this keynote address there. It is expected to highlight America's economic priorities. That includes his push to bring down the cost of home ownership.
So at the same time, he will go all in on his goal of acquiring Greenland, stressing the strategic importance of the territory in his ongoing push.
What is the European leaders of Davos when they push back on your Greenland plan?
Well, I don't think they're going to push back too much. Look, we have to have it. They have to have this done. They can protect it. Denmark, they're wonderful people. And I know the leaders are very good people, but they don't even go there. And, you know, because the boat went there 500 years ago and then left, that doesn't give you title to property.
So we begin with Rich Edson. He's reporting live from the White House. I'll speak the White House. All right. Ed, give us your Rich, excuse me. Give us your take this morning.
Good morning, Dana. Well, President Trump will leave the White House later today for the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. The president says he is going to discuss with world leaders all that's going on with Greenland. The president has been posting about it overnight, these self-governing Danish territory. He says he spoke with the General Secretary of NATO, Mark Rutte, and that, quote, I expressed to everyone very plainly, Greenland is imperative for national and world security. There can be no going back. On that, everyone agrees. Over the weekend, the president texted Norway's prime minister, said since he was denied the Nobel Peace Prize, he no longer felt he had to think purely of peace. The president denies the Nobel Peace Prize influenced his thinking on Greenland.
No, I don't care about the Nobel Prize. They have a board, but it's controlled by Norway. And I don't care what Norway says. But I really don't care about that. What I care about is saving lives.
The president has threatened European countries with additional tariffs if they refuse to support him on acquiring Greenland. Denmark's government has said it's willing to work with the U.S. on reinforcing Greenland's security. The Europeans have said a fight to take territory from an allied nation could put the entire NATO alliance at risk. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, already in Davos, speaking to Maria Bartiromo, laid out the administration's argument.
I think the president is worried that if there were an incursion into Greenland, the U.S. would be called upon to defend Greenland. Greenland's becoming more and more attractive for foreign conquest, and he very strongly believes that it must be part of the United States to prevent a conflict rather than getting the U.S. engaged exposed into a hot conflict.
The president has refused to say whether he would use force to take over Greenland. Dana?
Okay, Rich Edson. I got it right that time. I'm so sorry, Rich, and thank you for kicking us off on America's Newsroom. Tuesdays are my hardest day, but now it's underway. All right, Bill.
We're good now. Okay, how important is Greenland? Going to show you a number of maps here to give you a bit of a history lesson and also what the president's talking about, what the European powers are talking about. Remember, our show, America's Newsroom, almost 2 years ago, we went well above the Arctic Circle into an area north of Alaska. Here's Greenland right off the coast of Canada. We were over here in the Beaufort Sea with the U.S. Navy. As you see on the map, Greenland's a lot closer to North America than it is to our European partners in NATO. Over here, the size of Greenland. Brazil is 3.2 million square miles. Massive country, but Greenland is the largest island in the world at 836,000 square miles. Relative to California, it's much larger, with California at 163,000 miles, if you're able to put that into your mind. Come over here. I'm just going to show you a few things here. I know there's a lot of moving parts on this map. Think about two things right now when I talk about this. This is Russia, right? Every red dot is a Russian Arctic base. Every green dot is a NATO Arctic base, primarily U.S. here, and a few with NATO and the U.S. in Greenland. The early warning system, it lines the northern parts of Canada. Now, what the Russian submarines and the Russian Navy has done, and by the way, the Russians, they lead the world in icebreakers. They have nuclear-powered icebreakers, which means if they're at sea and they want to stay afloat and out on sea, They can do that because they're powered with nuclear power behind them. The United States is well behind on this effort, trying to catch up. Why would you need a nuclear-powered icebreaker? This is the Northwest Passage. That's what we use. It's tricky, right? But when it gets frozen when it gets frozen for most of the year and it thaws a little bit in July, a little bit more in August, and some in mid-September, you can transit through this area. But what the Russian submarines have been doing for quite some time, you see the gap noted here and the bare gap here? That goes between Greenland and Iceland. It goes between Iceland and the UK. And this is what the NATO powers are worried about with regard to Russia and the growing influence of China in the Arctic region. Here's another map for you, all right? Washington, D.C. to the capital city of Nuuk in Greenland, 2,000 miles. Moscow in Russia to the capital city of Greenland, 2,000 miles. Denmark's somewhat closer at 1,800 miles, just to give you a sense of relativity. See all these lines on the map over here? If you were to get into a conflict with Russia and China, intercontinental ballistic missiles would not travel this way around the world, even this way. The shortest distance between two lines, right? It's a straight line between two places, and Greenland sits between Moscow and Russia, perhaps Beijing and China, and this is what the president's been emphasizing. You need that area, he argues, in order to put your future space golden dome in Greenland to prevent the threat of Russia and eventually China, perhaps, down the road if you were to get into a conflict. So that's the argument he makes.
An explanation, and the maps were very, very helpful.
I appreciate that to our team putting all that together.
Yeah.
And then, Dana, you get into the argument about natural resources and what's there. Remember the other day we said when Seward's Folly did the deal with Russia in 1870,
Okay.
they did not discover gold in Alaska until 20 years later.
Right.
So who knows what's in Greenland beneath that ice? 2/3 of that island lies beneath the Arctic Circle.
I thought that was an excellent explanation. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, Professor Hemmer is on call.
Great. Well, now everyone's going to be calling you for that map today.
Yeah.